Hello everybody, this is Zaxter99. Welcome back to our third chapter of the Hero of Kendrickstone. Now you remember in chapter 2, we had some run-ins with, some baddies that tried to attack us, but we were saved by a very nice female knight named Mildred, Dame Mildred. And we ended up taking a route with her into Kendrickstone just as the night was falling. So we are finally in the town, it looks like. As we begin, I want to go ahead and go over something real quick. It's kind of cool if you go into the stats. It'll show you that you're a freelance adventurer, your name is unknown, your prowess, your will above average, all your different stats here. Tend to show compassion based on my choices and order rather than freedom based on my choices. It tells you what I'm carrying. I wear no armor. Tells me how much money I have. I have 71 silver pennies. I'm severely wounded, and I'm not feeling too bad today. And you can go in here. You can look at maps. Kendrickstone. So we had come from here, I do believe, and we had come along this trail, and we were entering Kendrickstone here. Let's see. Oh, no, we were in Forester's Hollow. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. And we were headed into Kendrickstone here. That's right. Alright, so, and then this is a map of Kendrickstone, so this can kind of help you. The Wizard's Tower, the docks. Okay, we might have to research this later. Lure skills next. So pretty cool stuff. Brief history. A lot of stuff to read there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump back into our game and read Chapter 3, Rogues and Wizards. And that'll be right after this. All right, welcome back. I'm going to go ahead and start reading again. Dame Mildred parts ways with you as the two of you walk through Kendrickstone's massive gates. Remember, she says, as she begins to write away, if you wish to ever enter my service, come to the keep at any time. I'll have it arranged. With that, the knight who may have saved your life is gone, disappearing into the massive throng of people who mingle and surge and crowd the narrow, well-trodden city streets, even at this late hour. The senses of the city overwhelm you from every direction. First, there is the noise. Cacophony of hundreds of people, merchants hawking their wares, 100 different conversations, cries of animals and children, the rattle of carts, and 100 other noises. It's all the bubbling babble of a village meeting magnified and 1,000-fold. And then there are the smells, the sweat and stink of thousands of unwashed bodies. Miasma left by the piss and shit of humans and animals both. The stench of rotting food, smoke, and cooking grease, and other foul odors you cannot even recognize. The air is thick with droppings and cast-offs, the rotting byproducts of tens of thousands of lives. Finally, your ears get used to the cacophony, and your nose begins to filter the overpowering stench, and you can see the glory that is Kendrickstone. Houses piled 3 or 4 stories high, stretching into the distance like a jumbled mass, the thick, high walls cordoning them from the outside world. To one side stands an immense human-raised mountain of spires and turrets and crenellated burlocks in blood-red stone. The city keeps where the Duke of Kendrickstone rules all surveys. To the other side, a strange construction overlooks the city. What looks like 2 towers, one upended and hovering in midair above the other. Either that's the Wizard's Tower, or you're the Mansa of Corlandis. With the day quickly drawing to a close, you need to decide where to go. I want to enter the keep, or go to the keep and enter Dame Mildred's service. I'll go to the Wizard's Tower and see if it's inhabited and might hire me. I don't want to serve anyone. I'll find an inn to stay at. Or I want to get these wounds looked at first. I'm going to go ahead and try to get these wounds looked at right now. So let's go ahead and do that. First things first, you've got wounds that need tending, and blood is already leaking through the makeshift bindings you improvised on the road. Your best option would probably be to seek healing at a sanctuary. A city like Kendrickstone must have at least a dozen such places, houses of health and faith where the wounded are healed, the grief-stricken are consoled, the lynx and sheep gut of bottles of balm are provided to armorless couples. It would hardly be difficult to find one housing a watcher with some ability at healing magic. Of course, the sanctuary will demand a fee for the service. It's how the faith of the divine court stays financially stable after all. A voluntary donation of about 10 silvers is customary. Well, you do. I'll go to the sanctuary and seek magical healing, 10 silver. Forget it, I'll wait for my wounds to heal naturally. I'm going to go ahead and pay and get these wounds taken care of. It isn't hard to find a sanctuary. In fact, it turns out there's one right next to the gate. You step from the noisy street onto the polished wooden floor of the house of worship. Despite its unassuming facade, the sanctuary's interior is heavily lighted, and its central dais is adorned with the scales, sword, and sundal of the divine court. A fussy-looking man in cleric's robes comes out to greet you, introducing himself as Watcher Lysander. Almost immediately, he unwraps your bandages, tut-tutting under his breath at your shoddy binding job. After a moment's examination, he nods. Yes, I can heal this. Costs 10 silvers. The second you drop the requisite payment into the sanctuary's immense offering bowl, Watcher Lysander begins a healing spell, staring intently at your wounds as the faint glow of magic coalesces around his hands. The pain is absolutely agonizing, like having your raw flesh scraped with a block of salt. Cry out if you must. The court won't judge you guilty for that, the old healer tells you. With tacit permission granted, you let out a loud, high-pitched scream. The passers-by outside barely notice. They're used to this sort of thing. Then you feel your bones and flesh knitting, your torn skin healing. The pain fades, replaced with the itchy sensation of raw skin against the cold air. The glow fades from Watcher Lysander's hands. A glance downward confirms that your wounds are now completely closed. The old man smiles as you flex your newly healed limb. Now go, and be thou judged innocent. With a cleric's formal vindication still echoing in your mind, you step back out into the crowded street. Your head is swimming, and it might continue to do so for a few days as your body replenishes its strength, but your wounds will not fester or worsen. Where to now? I'll go to the keep and enter Dame Mildred's service. I'll go to the wizard's tower and see if there's an inhabitant who might hire me. I don't want to serve anyone. I'll stay at the inn. I'm going to stay at the inn. Alright, you head into the winding maze of narrow roads, some cobbled, some nothing more than a thick layer of dirt, rainwater, and other materials you really don't want to think about. With no particular direction in mind, you wander the streets looking for an inn or other accommodation. Alas, in the twisting roads of the great city and the encroaching gloom of night, you soon find yourself hopelessly lost. Before long, you have no idea at all where you are. You've never been in a big city like Kendrickstone, and the gloom of night, coupled with the shadowy silhouettes of the buildings around you, has left you entirely disoriented. Worse yet, the throngs of people who were crowding the streets not long ago have retreated to their homes. You're practically alone. Practically, but not quite. You turn yet another corner in the evening gloom, only to find yourself face to face with a pug-faced man in a stout leather jacket, a truncheon in one hand and a lit torch in the other. You there, he demands. Where are your papers, boy? I tell him the truth that I have no idea what he's talking about. I pretend to look for papers while I think of a plan. I run. This man clearly means me harm. I will run. Immediately you turn to run. You've barely gone 2 steps when you find yourself face to face with another leather-clad figure, a woman, who puts a dagger to your throat. I'd be careful running off like that, the man behind you drawls, especially if you ain't got a writ of protection. Such folk are known to come to bad ends. The man with the truncheon wrestles 2 notes, sharp and loud in the evening gloom. Another dozen men and women step out of the shadows, seemingly from every alleyway and alcove. Some carry daggers, some clubs. 3 hold steel-bowed arbalest, capable of punching holes through steel plate. Great. We're in trouble. Being out alone at night without a writ of protection? You should know better, the man with the truncheon snarls. You should know what that means. You spend a moment completely confused, since you very obviously don't. The thug with the truncheon growls in frustration. Hand over your money and weapons, you stupid idiot, he snarls. We'll leave you the clothes on your back as a courtesy, but next time we find you out here with no writ, we'll just slit your throat and have done with you. How wonderful. For the second time today, somebody's trying to rob you. The situation looks grim indeed. You're in an unfamiliar city, alone, at night, and surrounded by more than a dozen heavily armed robbers. What now? Try to fight my way out? Oh, I think that's going to be nearly impossible. I run and try to lose them in the streets? Or maybe I could talk them out of robbing me. Wow. I don't like any of those choices. I don't like the situation I'm in. What are my best chances of escaping, though? Probably not fighting my way out. Run and try to lose them in the streets, or maybe I'm going to go ahead and run again. Let's go for it. Run. Kendrickstone's twisted maze of streets is made even more impossible to navigate in the evening gloom. Maybe if you're able to escape the blade at your throat, you can disappear. You take a deep breath as you mentally prepare yourself to get away. What's all this then? All around you, the thugs seem to freeze up at the sound of a reedy but authoritative voice. What's all this then? All around you, the thugs seem to freeze up at the sound of a reedy but authoritative voice. A man steps out from the shadows. Not another thug, but a thin, balding man of middle years, dark hair pulled back and complemented by a neatly trimmed beard. He wears a bright blue doublet, black hose, and the draped chaperon of a wealthy merchant. Let that boy go, he orders. Surprisingly enough, the knife disappears from your neck. You can't help but stare in puzzlement. A wealthy merchant, alone at night and unarmed? These thugs should be robbing him, not taking orders from him. Boss, this one's fair game, the man in the truncheon protests. No writ of protection or anything. Of course the boy has no writ, you stupid dolt, the man in the blue doublet replies peevishly. He's just come into town. Janet's group saw this one walk through the gate not an hour ago. The merchant walks up to you as the thugs all lower their weapons. Look, I'm quite sorry about this mess, he says to you. That doesn't even come close to answering any of your questions. In fact, it may have raised a few more. Do I say, who are you? What's this about a writ of protection? Or where am I? I'm going to say, what's this about a writ of protection? A writ of protection, the merchant replies. Why, it's one of these, of course. He reaches into one of his many pouches in his belt and pulls out a small roll of tough, expensive-looking vellum tied with a string of red yarn. The merchant unfolds the scroll with a practiced movement and then produces a bottle of ink and a sharpened reed, the kind used for writing, from another pouch. He unstoppers the ink, dips the reed into the ink, and scribbles something onto the scroll. This scroll is 3 months' worth of protection, he says. He offers it to you and will ward you from thieves and other criminals. If you are ever accosted within the city walls by a thug or a brigand, simply show this to them and they'll leave you be. You take the scroll, and the merchant continues. Normally, a writ like this would cost you 50 silver. However, as an apology for your rough treatment, I offer this one to you for free. You will, of course, have to buy another at the end of the 3-month period. Okay. Wow. Sounds like corporate America. Another 3-month period. Anyway, who are you, or where am I? I'm going to say, who are you? The well-dressed man dips his head in a polished, fluid courtier's bow. William of Hollowford, at your service. And you? I am Alexander, you reply, from Forster's Hollow. The merchant's eyebrow rises. Ah, so you're new here. Well, in that case, allow me to offer you some advice. These fine men and women, he gestures to the heavily armed thugs surrounding you, answer to me. Should any of them continue to trouble you in any way, do not hesitate to come to me, and I shall see your case redressed. I have a very large manse in the Bright Wall quarter. It's quite easy to find." Your eyes widen. Who is this man? And how exactly did he obtain the immense power and wealth that he seems to wield with such familiarity? William of Halliford smiles. "These folk are my workers, you see. I'm a merchant. I trade in protection. To be more specific, I ensure that no man, woman, or child under my protection in this city is threatened by pickpockets, burglars, or murderers." You return the merchant's look pointedly, remembering the feeling of the sharp steel against your throat. "That's funny, you say," voice dripping with irony, "because I could swear your workers were about to rob me." The merchant replies with a shake of his head and an easy smile. "You must understand, dear boy, I run a business. I generally find it a good policy if those unwilling to pay for protection are reminded of why that might be inadvisable." So I say, so you protect those who can pay and prey on the ones who can't. Wow, that sounds like a ballsy statement to make to this guy. I see. So safety in this town has to be bought. Or that's actually a pretty clever way to do business. Ballsy, pretty ballsy, or being a wimp. Cowering out. Well, let's see here. I'm going to say the first one. I'm going to be ballsy. So you protect those who can pay and prey on the ones who can't. "You daft little fool," the man with the truncheon exclaims. "You'd rather live in fear of being robbed or knifed every day than pay your coin and walk the streets in safety?" "Thom, I would have a care not to speak to our young guest so harshly," interjects William of Halliford in a tone of rebuke. The thug nods and mutters an apology under his breath. Of course, as coarsely as he might have put it, Thom does have a point. The merchant continues, "This city's criminals feared nobody and answered to no one when I first arrived. Now they fear me, and thus, so long as you pay your fee, you've no need to fear them." Okay, so the last question, the only choice I have is where am I? Well, I already know where I am. I'm in Kendrickstone. The man with the truncheon rolls his eyes. One of the thugs behind him actually sheathes her dagger to bury her face in her palm. "You're in the Warrens, my friend," the merchant replies. "It's the poorest part of town and the easiest one to get lost in. Few people who don't live here ever come in, and none by choice." Suddenly you feel very, very small. The shadows of the houses around you seem to loom larger above you, as if to blot you out of the evening sky. "I very much hope," the merchant continues, "that you didn't come here by choice, my friend." Shake your head nervously. "No, I didn't. I guess I was pretty lucky to run into you, wasn't I?" There are certainly worse scenarios running through your head. The merchant looks at you oddly for a moment and then smiles. "Lucky? I suppose you might think that." William of Halliford peers at the sky for a moment and then looks back down. "Regardless, it's best you be getting out of here. I mean no offense to the fine folk who live here, but the Warrens after dark can be an unpleasant place, especially if you're not used to the big city. I suppose you'll need directions?" I ask, how do I get to the keep? I ask how to get to the wizard's tower. I ask how I might find a good inn. I'm going to ask how I find a good inn. "Just looking for an inn," you reply. "I need somewhere to stay while I find some work." The merchant thinks for a moment. "I know a good place," he says. "The owner's fair and the rates are cheap. The rooms are clean as such places go, and the food isn't too bad." That sounds like as good a recommendation as any. How might I find the place? William of Halliford takes you by the shoulder and points you down one of the dark alleys. "Take that road down until it splits in two. From there, turn right until you get to the river. Then walk past the bridge until you see the sign of a flaming sword. That's the place. Blazing Sword Inn." You go over his instructions in your mind until you're sure you understand them. Then you nod. "Okay, I'm done. I don't need any more directions. I'm good for now." I thank you for the directions, you reply. I should probably get going. However, before you turn to leave, the man in blue speaks again. Hold a moment, he says. You stop. Now that I think about it, someone like you might be of great use to me, he says. You're young, fit, and fresh from the country. I could offer you a bed, meals, and even a little bit of pay in exchange for a few services. I might be interested in that. What kind of services? What kind of services? You've heard the cautionary tales of bright-eyed youths coming to the city, getting taken in by the unscrupulous and the immoral, and being forced into disreputable trades you certainly want no part in. William of Halliford recoils for half a moment, an expression of shock on his face. Not the sort you're thinking of, not at all. I need a courier, someone capable of running messages and delivering an occasional warning or two. Nothing illegal, and certainly nothing unsavory. You nod at the man's vehemence, if nothing else. The merchant in blue continues, If you truly wish to work for me, follow me at a discreet distance, he says, as he turns to leave. I will enter a house, wait as long as it seems prudent, and then knock upon the door. If you decide against it, walk away, and this conversation will have never happened. Before long, the bright blue of the merchant's doublet is disappearing into the shadows of the narrow streets. If you wish to follow him and enter his employ, you must decide to do so now, before you lose sight of him. Well, I was looking for something to do, but I'm going to go ahead and go on my own and go to the Blazing Sword Inn. You make your decision quickly. You want no part of William of Halliford's offer, nor do you want to be in anyone else's service. You will stick with your decision to make your own path. Yeah, I like that. Thankfully, the merchant's instructions prove easy enough to remember, and you eventually find yourself before a large, rambling building, half timber and 2 stories high. A brightly painted wooden door sign portraying the longsword with flames along the length of its blade hangs from above the door. This seems to be the place. Bone-tired from the day's exertions, and with a prospect of rest within reach, you find yourself with barely enough energy to stumble to the counter and get a room for the night. Exhausted, you tumble into bed, too tired to care about anything other than sleep. Thankfully, your night is restful and uninterrupted. The next morning, you start the first day of your life in the city of Kendrickstone. All right, so that has been Chapter 3. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys are enjoying the story or if you think I made the right decisions. Do you think I should have followed the merchant? What do you think I should have done there? And, also let me know what you guys think in general about this book. Are you enjoying it? Have you watched all the videos so far? And do you want me to continue to read the entire story? Which I plan to do. Whatever it is, be sure you leave those comments down below. Be sure you give me a like if you like this video, if you're enjoying it. I would certainly appreciate that. And then if you haven't already subscribed, be sure you go ahead and click the link to subscribe to me, so that way you'll get notification of all my future videos, whether it be more chapters of this book or new reviews or gameplay videos of other games that you might be interested in. I want to go ahead and thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. This is Zaxter99.